Let's talk about fabrics and styling in this chapter. It is very important that you look at what the bride is actually wearing to decide what kind of flower girl dress you want to make. In my case, for the example that we're using for this course, it was based on the theme of the Wizard of Oz, and the bridesmaids' dresses were in a lovely yellow. The bride had an ivory dress with some lace on it, so I was then going for an ivory dupioni silk for the bodice, and because of the Wizard of Oz theme, we had a check skirt and we had a yellow or gold sash, and that worked very well to bring the theme together and to add a little bit of interest to it. And as you can see here, the bride was wearing red little slippers, and so was the little flower girl, and that worked really well. I topped everything off with a Paris bolero, and I put the sleeves in from the flower girl dress, but you can go a size up for the sleeve if you're doing that to get that really big effect. And that works really well because the jacket stops right above the cummerbund. When it comes to dupion silks, there are two different types. You can get a machine woven dupion silk, usually from China, which lies wider, not the 120 but the 140 meter, or you can get it from India, and that is way more structural. And it really depends what type of wedding dress your bride has, but most of the time it's better to opt for something that is smoother, almost has a taffeta-like appearance, but it's not as shiny as taffeta. Dupioni is just a brilliant fabric to use because you can also add embroidery. Now, I'm not a great embroiderer, just a few flowers on the neckline. They can make all the difference. Now, what I want to do is I want to show you a few examples of dresses that you can obviously make with my pattern and what fabrics were used for it, so that when you go out and buy your fabric, you're a bit more informed on which ones to choose, what to look out for, and what styles really work. In this example, we have a combination of polyester Duchess or bridal satin, and then you can team that up with a polyester satin for the skirt, which has a tulle overlay. And also here, the tulle is a little bit longer. I expect that this dress wasn't quite that long, maybe, to make that work. But you can make the tulle longer or keep it at the same length as the skirt. It's a really good option. You can also work a whole dress in the Duchess Satin. And here you can see that they have a faux bow at the back of the cummerbund because we have a rose on it, so that would be a hook and eye fastening or something. I thought that was a nice idea. And you can also extend the skirt and have it full length if you like. Please bear in mind that my skirts only go down to the ankle. This example again, and this is an indicator that that's a very popular choice for people, is satin for the top and tulle for the skirt. I particularly like this one. The tulle ends exactly on the same height as the skirt. And if you opted for a silk Duchess, maybe then you want to have a Shantung silk for the skirt, and then the tulle goes over it. And there are so many beautiful tulles with flowers on, which will make your flower girls look stunning. It's a really nice thing to do. And while we're on Shantung, I want to show you an example here that I wasn't too keen on, that I found, because it was made in Shantung silk, which is way too light to be a standalone dress. So if you find like the perfect Shantung in the perfect color, then just put a really heavy interlining in, a cotton interlining, and that will help this out to no end. But the skirt then should be almost twice the width, because it really will just fall flat if it doesn't have the width. And absolutely, you need a massive petticoat to give that some volume. Otherwise, it's just going to look very flimsy. The other thing you can see here is that the ties look a little bit too short. So you want to make absolutely sure that the ties really do come down to the hem of the skirt. They should, in theory, do that with my pattern. But if your girl is a little bit taller than she should be for her age, make sure that you get the length right. And here we have an example where it's done just perfectly. Obviously, there's a petticoat or even a hoop skirt under this to bring the skirt out. It's a nice, heavy Dupioni silk, and the ties sit right over the hem, so that's perfectly done. Around the neckline, there are some roses sewn on. How that works, I show you in one of my Vivian videos, so you can always go to that playlist and check that out if you want to see how that's done. What I liked about this combo is that if you're making 3 flower girl dresses, that you could have 2 in the contrast color or the accent color of the wedding, and then 1 in white, and you just add the kummerbund in the color of the dress. If you wanted to create a huge volume as well, you could use a gathered circle skirt, and I have got a really nice one with my Vivian dress that you could do if you already have that pattern. Alternatively, I also have a video showing you how to make a circle skirt. So if you don't have it, you don't want to buy it, you can make your own circle skirt, and then you can gather it as well, and then you get wonderful, wonderful volume. Another thing that you can do is to have the buttons covered in your silk so that you have another point of interest on the back. I think that looks absolutely stunning. Another thing I want to point out here is that the sleeves for the girls here seem rather tight. You can see it on the girl sitting on the right. So it's very important that you measure the upper arm and then make sure that the sleeve is actually 3 to 4 centimeters bigger than that, so that the sleeve isn't tight as it was here. Another option is to have an overlay over the entire dress. Here it was a polka dot tulle. I think that's absolutely stunning. And you could use a taffeta or shantung for this, and then you have the tulle over the top, because here it's not so important that you have the most expensive silk because you're overlaying it. Just use a really, really nice tulle, very soft, that goes over it. And then I've got a little tip for you. When you do an overlay, which are super popular and they do save you money because what's underneath it doesn't actually have to be silk. You could use like polyester taffeta as well. Then make sure that you gather the silk skirt or the underskirt and then the overlay separately, then put them together and then work them as one. That way you guarantee that the little gathers from the tulle don't lie in the gathers of the skirt that lies underneath it, and therefore it's a very uniform gather. You want it to create volume. The best way to do that is to gather them separately and then put them together. You might also want to think about creating just bodice with detail, and what I mean by that is you could use a variety of fabrics for the top. They could be embroidered, they could be glittery stuff on it, they could be jacquard or fabulous brocade, whatever you want. You could create detail with a bodice and then add a huge skirt, and in this case it had some embroidery already on the hem, and that is absolutely gorgeous. I think it's probably one of the more expensive dresses to make, but if it suits the bride's style, then why not? You know, another option here. Now I want to show you a few of the colors that I used when I still sold my flower girl dresses, and you can see here short bow versus bow correctly done, because it's very easy to say, oh, I've got some rest left, I just do the ties out of that, and it really ruins the look. You want those really wide, lovely ties that hang slightly over the hem. It makes all the difference. I think the ties are probably right on this Scottish version. I did a tartan here, and that is a polyester tartan. Nobody could ever tell that wasn't silk. So taffeta is a fantastic fabric to use. Just make sure you get a high quality one. It's a fraction of the price of silk, and people won't be able to tell the difference unless they're, of course, like, you know, seamstress. She will. Then I want to show you this example as well. This is a combination I made for an actual customer, and she was looking high and low for the right kummerbund color, and she couldn't find it in silk. She chose a polyester dupion or dupioni, and I think the difference between what you saw before and now is very obvious. Of course, this was still absolutely stunning, but if you have a choice, I would never go for a polyester dupioni. They just don't look like silk. They might do it on the photo if you order it over the internet, but it won't when the fabric arrives. Sometimes it's too thin, sometimes it's too thick, and overall it has that cheap shine to it, which you really don't want. If you order a dupion silk, even if it's on the lighter side, just make sure it's not Shantung dupioni. I've seen that as well. That's cheeky. You want a proper dupioni. They tend to be a little bit heavier silks to begin with. They give the skirts a lot of volume, and with an interlining on the bodice, you create a fantastic look. And now we're just going to have a look at an example of some customers of mine. Again, this lady made 10 dresses. So she could have easily used taffeta for the dresses and then used a silk dupioni kummerbund, and that would lift it totally, and you save a lot of money, and most people would not be able to tell the difference. I think you can see the difference definitely with dupioni faux silk and a dupioni silk. I would never go for the faux one if you can avoid it. But when it comes to a high quality taffeta and a high quality Duchess satin, it's very difficult to tell that it's not silk. And in fact, most wedding dresses are made out of Duchess bridal satin, which is made out of polyester. Times have moved on. They are really, really nice polyesters around. And a last word to the lining, I would use a cotton lining and interlining to make it really comfortable for your little one. I wish you much success in choosing your fabric and making a fabulous flower girl dress.